medium enterprises, they account for about 98% of all businesses here in Kenya. And they are, when you look at it from an employment point of view, they account of all jobs in this country. This critical sector, contribute about 50% to the global GDP. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it is such an important sector, not only here around the world. And when you ask the World Bank, they'll tell you that this sector is expected to contribute almost 60% to the global GDP by the year 2035. And so the question is, what are we doing here in Kenya to streamline the critical sector that is MSME? Joining me on Inside Government this afternoon is the Principal Secretary in the State Department for SMEs Development, Susan Mangani. Thank you very much indeed for finding time this afternoon to be with us here. Give us an overview of the state of SMEs in this country.
Yes, so first of all, I want to appreciate you for giving me this opportunity, and let me begin first of all by also joining His Excellency the President to send our condolences to the families of our citizens, our young people who we lost during the fracas that we've had in the last 2 weeks, the demonstration. I want also to reach out to people, my MSMEs, who their properties, businesses were destroyed following the Tuesday unrest. I know our economy is hurting. Just the destruction we've had this week alone has really left many of our young people unemployed, and many of the businesses are on the verge of sinking. So basically, and also yesterday was the International MSME Day. It's quite unfortunate that a lot also were happening yesterday, and we couldn't really take stock of where we are as the MSME sector and the critical role that MSME sector plays in our economies and even in the global economy. So, but they are very critical, and in a country like ours now, where majority of our population are fairly young, not just fairly but extremely young, because age-wise, averagely, we are 17 years old. And if you see what has been happening, I mean, the Generation Z coming up, they're just reminding us of things that we need to be doing, and they're asking us to speed up in terms of finding solutions for them. And the only sector that now is there to offer those solutions is the sector of MSME, because in our country, we have a potential workforce of 20 million. And this is despite the fact that each and every year we're having close to 1 million people coming into the workforce, joining the job market. And out of this 20 million potential workforce, only 3.5 million are formally employed, leaving close to 16.5 to 17 million who are in the informal employment. I mean, struggling to make ends, doing something in an unformalized manner, at least to put food on the table, to enhance their livelihood. But then now, out of those even who are employed, the 3.5 million, the civil service, that is, as we are on exchequer, civil service only accounts for less than 1 million. To be precise, could be about 970,000, thereabout. So majority again also in that space are employed in the private sector. So what does that show? It shows us that where we need to put more effort is in building the private sector. That's the only space that right now we have to expand to create secure and sustainable jobs for our young population. Now, but how do we build the private sector? The private sector, building it up, does not fall from heaven. It falls from our population. So which is then what is the infrastructure that will help us to build up is the MSME sector. So then our work and our focus as a government, and not just government alone, everybody in our economy, is to see to it that we organize these 17 million Kenyans who are in informal setup. We build up their capacity. We become more intentional in terms of linkages to sustainable markets, and see how we can crowd them into the private sector, because that's how we can then create dependable jobs, dependable and secure, to take care of our young population. So MSME therefore becomes a primary consideration economy. And for us as a government, in addition to the healthcare, to education, I think the third one is now the MSME sector. A primary consideration, our way of livelihood, because this is how then we are going to mobilize our population to engage economically. You're talking about 50% to GDP, the global economy. But here in Kenya, we are at 40% GDP. And we know for sure that to about even 70% of GDP, if we put in more enabler, not just government alone, together, partnering together with all actors, the private sector, everybody now becoming more sensitive about this. We create opportunities for our young people. So if you saw what has happened in the last 2 weeks, it shows that we need to be more robust in terms of now focus interventions that can get everybody to participate economically. If you look at our young people, especially those who are in schools, who are in it doesn't mean that they need to have to graduate for them to look for work. I mean, they can still be learning and making money. Always a need for money. So I think we also now have been reminded that we need to become more innovative, more deliberate at enterprising spaces for our young people wherever they are, if they're in colleges, if they are in tech spaces, if they are in X spaces. That can become a marketplace where they can earn a living. So by doing that, we will be socializing our economy to make sure that nobody is left behind of any government, the dream of any society.
And I think also the message that is coming out from what you're calling the Gen Z is that now going forward, for every policy that is being made in this country, I mean, the young people all the policies that we are making. So how the events of this week going to help us moving forward?
I think, like I said, it was first it was a character. They really formed our character in terms of us just appreciating that young people are not just a segment of, one, they're the majority, and two, the majority of citizens that we have, but second, they're our partners. They're our strategic partners in our development. If they're our strategic partners in development agenda, it means they ought to be involved from the very beginning so that they properly get aligned by identifying opportunities which they can also equally participate in. Around taxation. If you look at them as strategic economic partners, then it means we have to involve them from the onset, and you'll be you come up also with better proposals which can then help us also to achieve whichever goal that we will be looking for to achieve. So for us, it's time now to consider young people because of their numerical strength and and of course now their literacy level. I mean, most of them have gone to school. They're very creative in thinking. We see how do we enterprise that. And I think as a government, we are not so much look at our bottom-up economic transformation agenda. First, it seeks to underscore the fact that each and every Kenyan, young and old, have got economic. Also acknowledge the fact that at the grassroots, where these They exist within massive potentials, and all we need to do is to build up their capabilities to unlock those potentials, be it young people, be it children, be it elders, persons with disabilities, and everybody. They will always have a pie. They will have something to contribute to it. We know we're existing in a global economic space which has got a number of challenges, issues, but I think together, if we bring everybody on the table, interventions that everybody can align in, we can reach there. So yes, we have to work with the young people. In any case, they're the majority, so there is no way we can work without majority there. But at what point are we working with them? So we need now to come a little bit down and start working the inception, so they understand that this policy, for example, coming up, what is the implication? What is our space? What is expected of us? How are we contributing to this? After seeing them as strategic partners, I believe we are going to move together as one nation, as one society. So everybody will do their part. They will do their part, private sector will do their part, and together we are going to grow our economy in the speed that we desire.
You see, and I like the fact that you managed to put the Kenyan population, I mean, you know, 70% of our population are people who are aged below below 30 years.
Yep.
And when you look at the last 15, 20 years, in trying to come up with policies and initiatives targeting this critical mass.
Yeah.
But what we have seen in the last 2 weeks or 1 week, the policies that we have been working on and the initiatives that we have been working on have not been working.
I think what we've seen in the last 2 weeks is it was an indication that deeper in contextualizing the spaces of young people, because, for example, the conceptualization around youth in this country, not just with this administration but even before, like you rightly put it, has always been youth are vulnerable from a vulnerability point of view. Like, these are people who have much problems, who have this. Quite figure out whether if, from an opportunity perspective, that these people, they might be vulnerable, they don't have jobs, but the resources are huge. In our conversation now, one of the most the new front in terms of the natural resource as a country is the youth population. To us is more lucrative than even having those minerals like diamond, gold. They're more resourceful than those minerals because of the workforce attributed with it and the innovativeness that comes with that. Look at the future and design the future just by looking at their trend. So we haven't probably been a little bit deeper, because now guided with that notion that youth is problem. Because I think perspective, because we're always trying to solve a problem attributed to youth unemployment, but we also need to start now digging deeper. How do we maximize on the opportunities that young people come with it? You know, those, first of all, the numbers, but two, also the innovativeness space. Now, having said that, because all the time we've been looking at youth as from a problem perspective, vulnerable perspective, we then been limiting ourselves the spaces in which they are in. So people would have expected a young person to be the hustler, and the way people define hustler, you know what I mean. Yeah. Who have family backgrounds, for people who have not gone to school, who are there. So a lot of intervention has tended to look at the vulnerable young people. So we never really dwell properly into the spaces. People from an opportunity perspective who have all these skills, but they do not have a space. They cannot engage. So what can take up this ownership that now we're going to go deeper, like for example in those tech spaces, and see how do we maximize on these opportunities, because we also need and specific interventions to them so that then they can maximize their potential. So for example,
a moment of reflection.
It is not just reflection. It does. I mean, there's nothing much to kind of again sit down and start planning. We just need to take action. Now, for example, from where I sit, and you must have seen this. In this, you see lots of boda.
Yeah.
The very bottom coming up on the street. You did not see lots of mamamboga on the street. And it doesn't mean the mamambogas are not you. Mamambogas who are young women, they are there. But it's because our interventions for the last 1.5 years through the Hustler Fund has been to where you feel you can borrow 500 shillings, you can borrow 1,000, you can borrow what you need to buy your mbogas, you need to fuel your piki, you need to do ABCD. So those kind so we already working on them. But now, what intervention does a graduate require? What intervention require? What intervention does a college student, a TVET student require? I mean, we're gonna now figure out those innovative interventions to engage. Give you an example, which now, where we have thought about the last 2 weeks as these were happening. And you can imagine we had these spaces, this forum, and they were talking to each other and they were sharing ideas and were planning on what to do. Today we're gonna passing messages, and those were spaces that will take up to probably at some point 100 participants in those rooms and well coordinated themselves. If we enterprise those spaces, if they could sell their skills in those spaces, if they could market, because that was a market point. Some of us, because now you're just going to listen, because at some point we're not allowed to talk. So you just listen. If we share our head, you know the mood wasn't good. But imagine if we can enterprise that spaces for majority of young people who are participating there to start now even doing the online jobs, marketing, innovation. So what do we need to do in terms of policy, in terms of financial inclusion? Hustler Fund, we can create a product for them. And we're already thinking of having a startup pack for the young people in the tech spaces that have innovative ideas to take it to the market, where now they can borrow commensurate to the need. For example, other policy could be, because young people are in these tech spaces, how do we give them digital goods? What is the innovative way? Now discuss with the higher education loan. In that startup pack, they can also be given a laptop, because that's their marketplace now. So if you have that tool, any young person who is joining universities, who is joining TVETs, do digital trade to enterprise those spaces, to take their brilliant ideas, to model them into products that can be sold to the world. And you saw some of those X spaces. I mean, of the whole world, and they were able to attract who is who. And so this is a very huge opportunity for us now. And like I said, as a government, our character has been formed that we need to be also innovative and work up with them. So beginning now, you're going to see us coming up with a number of products that utilize those spaces to make them more economical, and I mean more to derive out economic dividends out of them.
Let's have a look at the state of the last 5 years, and they have faced major disruptions and major shocks here. It started back in 2020. You know, there was the COVID-19 pandemic. There was a major drought, the worst, or the worst in the last 40 years. Then we got into the floodings, record breaking. And now here we are, we're having a situation whereby now a lot of businesses have, have been disrupted by what has been happening in the last. What are we going to do, or what are we doing as a government to help SMEs get back to business and in a big way?
So MSMEs are vulnerable to shocks, and like you ably put it, in addition to those climate and the pandemic shocks, we've political tensions across the world. For example, the war in Ukraine and Russia, the war in Israel and Gaza, all this disrupts the global supply chain. And once the global supply chain, it means we end up, like, for example, with high inflation. That has also been a very condescending factor in the MSME space. And so you see so many businesses, if they are not, what happens? They go under. And like I've said, the kind of entrepreneurship that we are promoting, or rather doing, in Africa and to be specific in Kenya, because of the direct impact it has to the players. Because we talked about 17 million Kenyans who are in informal sector, they are entrepreneurs, they are social entrepreneurs. The first direct impact is the source of livelihood. They're engaging in the products which they're selling, first and foremost, affords them food on the table. So if it has created jobs for themselves, so for us to do that, invest into risk mitigations, and some of this risk now, because in over 5 years we can now be able to take register risk-oriented mitigation. I know from the space where I sit, we are working on the credit guarantee scheme. It has been there to target only the higher end MSMEs, especially the medium size. But we want also MSMEs at the micro level to be also guaranteed. So by doing that, even our MSMEs who have lost result of this recent shock, I mean the chaos this week and everything, can also survive back. We have programs which we've tried to come up with climate shock mitigation. We have a 150 million project through World Bank, and we have a component that is going to support people who are affected by floods, who are affected by drought, because those are some of the things that you do not plan, and you'll find a lot of the insurance firms may such kind of risk. So what we do, because we know this is a source of job and we do not want our population to lose their source of livelihood, we have to come up and give them those buffer zone. Again, for example, some of the initiative that the government is doing, for example, the Social Health Insurance Fund, is to try and give access, at any given time, access to quality care, so that when you're doing your businesses and you encounter such kind of shocks, it shouldn't hurt you so much, and even if you get hurt, you can still bounce back. This is not just for the government alone. The government's work is just to create a policy environment where every actor, be it the private sector, development partners, can align to it. So what you're going to align to mainstream this kind of consciousness of being patient with this sector, the MSMEs, and getting to understand their context. For example, products were destroyed, properties were destroyed. You see the sunbeam, all of it went into flames. I have an MSME which
employs, hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people now, they are going without food, because you see the kind of, some who are employed indirectly, maybe they're paid on day-to-day basis, but now wake up from their houses, they don't know where to go because there's no business anymore. So those people, they are also. So how do we talk to the private sector to become more patient with them, to give them certain relief? But even if you're given this month, next month you're not going, we need to restock you. you need to restock your business. So it takes everybody to come to that consciousness level and see the role of economy. Even if you choose not to do, you know somehow you're also likely to lose out, because these are the backbone of our economy. So we are going to advance those conversations. The conversation that is or the dialogue is not just about on taxation and what needs to do to meet our budget deficit.
It's going to be holistic.
But it's also going to be holistic, to look at how do we mitigate those risks, how do we recover. We quantify those losses. Billions of money have really gone down the drain. Billions of, shillings of jobs have been lost there. I told you of this, an MSME who 6 months ago, we advanced a loan to him of 5 million because he wanted machine. He's manufacturing hair products. And so he had a shop, display shop. And so the other day he tells me, you know what, PS, my shop, and he's showing me, it was vandalized, nothing, I didn't even save any perfume. And this is someone who is servicing a loan. So I can imagine the extent of the damage. I can imagine the extent of this destruction that it has to economy. At times like this, it's good for all of us to come together and say never again.
I want to hear from you. I mean, look, and I like the fact that you're quantifying, some of the losses that have incurred, and that is just one, and there are so many of them from Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu. Are we looking at a situation whereby you're likely to convene a meeting of all that you can listen to them, you can listen to their ideas, and from there you can move together?
Oh yeah, so we are going to have those targeted conversations. Like I said, first and foremost, MSME is not homogeneous. There are different levels of MSME. Even in the definition of MSME, we have small and we have medium enterprises. So at each and every level, we will have different conversations that are specific to their context. So we are going to have all these conversations going around that have got different needs: market needs, financial needs, policy needs, capacity building needs. They vary. So we are our engagement and make sure we get closer to them as much as we can. We have MSMEs who are doing trade, who are in the trade transaction. We are doing export, doing imports. Have MSMEs who are in the manufacturing sector. Our desire, because if we promote value addition and you get as many MSMEs being crowded into the manufacturing, more jobs for people here. You saw there was a conversation about why are we putting tax on the importation of sanitary pads, and one of the forums online, and I was saying that we have potential of manufacturing sanitary towels here, and you see, sanitary towel product, because the girls and with the women, this is a product that is biological. We will always want it. Like every day, you'll always have consumers there. So it's capture. So if you were to promote the local manufacturers here in Kenya, even in each and every county, because the market is wide, have a manufacturing from the locally available materials, and we have local. We can grow cotton, increase our cotton production to achieve all that. We can increase, so be available locally. So if we increase our cotton production, what that means is that our farmers, they also will be getting something. So you see, it a multiplier effect. If we decide just on that one product alone and we say we are discouraging importation, we want now to focus on local production. I was saying, listening to me, the Gen Z, that you know what, if we have a local company, you'll need marketers, you'll need accountants, you will need everybody, manage, you will need tech people, tech engineers, IT specialist, you know. So it is, you will need innovators in all these things. So you create massive job if we decide to go by that policy. But you know, and interestingly, some people, responses were telling me, but how about quality? Is I'm saying quality, it is us to desire which kind of quality we need. And
you have the Kenya Bureau of Standards.
And we have the Kenya Bureau of Standards, and we bring them into check. So then that one tells us sometimes about the quality and the standards. So there's this fixation that what we import outside there is, but we look at what is the social gain is that we can create more than 100,000 jobs, direct jobs, and sustainable jobs if we were to go that direction.
I also want to hear things, and in case you're just joining us, we are having this conversation with the Department for SMEs. This is Susan Mangeni, and we are looking at the state of the SMEs in this country. They have been affected by various shocks, from the COVID-19 pandemic to political instability, and of course to the financial shocks that the world has faced. And so the question is, how do we move forward and bring SMEs on to them and get to hear their solutions? I want to hear this from you, Madam P.S. I mean, the government has rolled out various products, you know, targeting SMEs. Funds to the Hustler Fund, to Women Funds, Youth Enterprise Fund. What has been the impact of all these products? And are we looking at a situation whereby we're going to take us in a minute? Are these products really working the way they were intended to?
So, first of all, these products are intervention. And must have to fulfill the social goal. What is the social goal? The goal of inclusivity. That we have segment of population that they are also with us and they need to be involved. So having specific intervention population gives them that sense of belonging, sense of being, cared for. So when the youth enterprise came up, to be precise, around 2006, 2007 there. It was a jubilation to our young people because they felt, okay, fine, as a young person, there is a barrier which has really gone down. Go and access youth-oriented products. And even though we tend sometimes to assess the impact of these products from the commercial output, oh, how much is the repayment? How much is what? See, an enterprise, running a successful enterprise, is not only based on accessing finance alone. There's other factors put into consideration, like capacity building, so that someone at the ideation stage, somebody needs to understand this idea which I'm doing. Is it viable? Do I have a market? Invest? How do I de-risk myself? How do I do this? So it's not just a question of being given money and to do business. That's not all. So we need to buy the end-to-end intervention. If I'm giving you financing, at the same time, I need to get interested in the kind of business that you're doing and give you the business development support so that the business, the repayment, how I borrow and repay, you're borrowing and repaying because you've been able to do a successful business and on investment. But again, in terms of meeting the social objective, it has, because at least our youth fund is there for the young people. Now, what? No, and young people can access it. And so what we need to do, how do we now organize these young people to make effective utilization? That's the conversation that do not have to begin at the youth fund level. It's a conversation that needs to begin at the formation stage of our young people, right from the secondary, university level to the college level, so that people grow up with a culture of entrepreneurship, appreciating that I have to borrow for a purpose. Because then what has been happening, most of our people I need money for consumption. I need money, I need to do what? So say, okay, fine, today, tomorrow will take care of itself. So I think it's that culture that we need. Not only myself who can do it through my sector, it's not only the government who can do it. This also we need to now bring on board all the social institutions, to the education, to the peer, everybody, that economy, everybody that can, churches, religious institution, all the denomination, we have a role in calculating into a population an appreciation of entrepreneurship, like some sort of that kind of self-determination that we had at independence. So when it comes to economic participation, you say, how can I enterprise my skill? What is it that I can do for myself? So for us, what we are thinking is that it is good to have such kind of targeted interventions to the young people, but we need to do more, and that's what now we are working with. My sector, ensure that we provide end-to-end, and on the Hustler Fund in particular. Yeah. You can. What is the impact to the economy? The last 2 weeks, you've not seen in Mama Mboga. Already, that's an impact. You can imagine if those people were disoriented.
Because they don't fall within the Gen Z
really,
bracket?
But you see, they all have smartphones. For young people, if it was a question of them going, they had it. You saw I mean that space, and they were part of it. Yesterday we saw statements coming from Boda Boda and saying, no, we are losing job. We're losing job. We need to consider dialogue amongst ourselves. But it's just because they're being taken care of. But now we just need to reactivate spaces and this intervention that we have for them. If you ask me, I think we are on the right direction, but we just need to do more, because even the Hustler Fund, today as we speak, Hustler Fund is a rehabilitation. We are rehabilitating our people who are in CRBs, almost 8 million, who could not borrow. Now we want to reintegrate them. And I'm happy to announce that 1 years down the line, we now have about 1.6 million good borrowers. We came up with a credit score that we now want to socialize and make it a national thing. Certificate over and above your national ID, one of your identity in the credit market should be certain score. This score will give you unlimited access to credit, because even the Hustler Startup Park that you're thinking for to promote innovation in the space of the college student, the tech population. After Gen Z, we are going to have also Alpha and many other coming, but technology is gonna be there for a long time. So we need to keep on appreciating that space and coming innovative products that can serve there. So, but you need a social score that makes you become more unique and become more different and become more trusted. So Hustler Fund has achieved that. We're gonna very soon credit score for each and every Kenyans who had participated on the Hustler Fund. And today we are talking about 23 million Kenyans. And I think we are the first country in the region to have done. Hustler Fund gave us a credit census of every Kenyans who onboarded there. We're able to determine how many Kenyans are in need of credit, or who are in need of this level. So from that, we can now filter and start coming up with specific needs of these people, especially now 1.6 million Kenyans. We're now designing a winning program. We want to win them off to the competitive market. So when the story of Hustler Fund is told, it will be how many Kenyans who could not access, who had credit from the commercial bank, how many of them now have built up ability to borrow credit? And I think this is the intervention that we are doing. Every day as it is today, a turnover, and you see the demand has also increased. We have Kenyans, more than 10,000, who can now borrow up to 50,000 a day or per every transaction. The fund. How are they borrowing? Because they are savings also. And the Kenyans who began with 500 bob, who began with 1,000 bob as their baseline credit limit. But because
now
of
they're
the
doing
1,000.
Tell me, Fees, I mean, we've been talking about the SMEs fund, which is supposed to be domiciled at the SMEs authority. At a situation whereby we need to accelerate the formation and the setup of this fund so that it can help in the rehabilitation of businesses that have been affected.
Yeah, I agree. That will. But like I say, the government's business is not to do business. The more, if we to get as many commercial sector, players, as many mainstream financial institutions participating in offering affordable to MSMEs, that will be a win. Unlike, because of the moral hazards and everything of running a fund, and as we run a fund and you keep on, you see, to rehabilitate them and win them off to the private sector so that they can start now offering them the SME loan and become more bankable. There'll be more opportunities than when we just we want to run that intervention within government. It's a good idea to have it, but as we wait for it to be formed, we cannot wait. They need to be addressed like yesterday. So what are we doing in that space? This 1.6 million, we've gotten a facilities through World Bank of about 30 million. And through Kenya Development Corporation, that facility is going to be wholesaled to participating banks. So we are calling them, we advertise for every bank who wanted to participate to come on board to support us in graduating the Hustler Fund beneficiaries so far who are doing well, as to incentivize them and start accessing higher loan limits up to millions. So, but for us to do that is not something you can entirely achieve through digital. So it will be like through digital, we are going still to promote the mandatory savings, because what saving, the people who are right now that have said are accessing 50 million saving, which they've been the mandatory saving, because you see, if you have savings, you're already secured. So it's the saving that has been doubled up to give them the new limit. So those people who their savings problem 30% has reached, for example, 25,000. What they do, a new limit then becomes 50,000. So you can, and that's why you see many people telling me, "Oh, I can't get," because now there is a huge increase. So we want now to transit the 1.6 million, or majority of them, to getting to the SME loan. So the SME loan you are talking about is going to be achieved through partnership between us and the commercial banks. Why that? So that now they they start getting used to using now the credit score, because when they go outside there, they don't need to be asked or give land, title, this and all those things. That is an assurance that I have some sort of social security, financial security in that. But the fact that also I've shown some good behavior, good mannerism in borrowing. You can only be of good behavior if you're borrowing for a purpose. So, but again, these ones who are yet, because I'm talking about 23 million people who have access, 21 million people, those who have not shown good attendance in paying borrowing, they still our business. We still go back to them. When they see the 1.6 million people being now access higher loans to support their businesses, to grow the enterprises, because again also the journey to creating jobs through MSME also is now beginning from these 1.6 million. Understand which businesses they're doing and start guiding them, being deliberate at transforming their business ideas into formidable enterprises, either at small scale or medium jobs. You realize 98% of our enterprises, our businesses rather, in this country, in this economy, are MSMEs. Only 2% are those large. And you see, large enterprises hardly creates job, because at that level, they start maximizing on their returns. So what they do, some of them go. So if they go automation, it means that in terms of the physical labor force, it declines. So, but the middle enterprises are the ones who create now sustainable jobs. So for us to do that, we need to populate the medium, small and medium enterprises, formidable enterprises that can going to bring in new farms at that level is through now walking a journey with these 1.6 million Kenyans, subjecting them to opportunities deliberately to explore opportunities. You've seen we've signed economic partnership. So far we've signed economic partnership with the European Union. We've signed, we are working trade and investment partnership STIP with the US, and if this goes through, it will enable us, it will make us being the first country, probably in strategic trade investment partners with the US, one of the largest economy. Now look at the entire. So, but to do that, who are going to participate there? We're not going to get people dropping from heaven to go there. We must start a journey. And this journey now, how we have started, through we've been able to filter. Today, 1.5 years down the line, we have 1.6 million Kenyans that we can now start keenly supporting them so that opportunities for export in European market and in the US. Then we also, we also want to invest in value addition, cottage industries. If you look at the Asian tigers, it's because they made a decision and invested heavily in value addition. So if you do those cottage industry, we start producing for local consumption. You've seen about the import bill that we experience from importation of the edible oils, raw materials like sesame, like groundnuts, like everything. These are things that are our traditional food value chain that we can get together, our population, mobilize in cooperatives, in groups, and they invest in production. And then we look for machineries that can do even the primary processing, which can be utilized in our households. So if our basic food at our level will be bringing down the import bill. And the more we bring down the import bill, the more now we start growing our industries and creating jobs.
As I let you go, I want you to first of all tell us two things. In 3 minutes, is it that the message that you are passing here is, and from now going forward, how are things going to be different? And you have 2.5 minutes.
Okay, you say 3 minutes. Thank you.
I take that.
When it comes to this kind of information sharing, it cannot be one-off. So you know something we'll say, we wake up today and we it. And how we are looking at capacity building now, we're looking at it differently so that it becomes MSME lifeline, because every day you experience different challenges, different opportunities, and you need to access or to overcome those challenges at the same time to access those opportunities. So we are going to have a more robust and innovative capacity building, which is opportunity driven, to make sure, like I say, to enterprise all spaces of young people can do something. It doesn't have to wait until they have graduated, they have that degree certificate to do something. No, they can start doing something within that time, after classes, within that time online they can be able to do. And you've seen even where what you're doing in that space by us now, and the government has been upbeat on this, setting up the IT hubs in each and every ward. If we achieve that, then we'll be creating tech spaces. The kazi kwa vijana been there. It doesn't have to be physical labor. It doesn't have to be construction. It doesn't have to be, I don't know, cleaning up street. Kazi kwa vijana can also be achieved in the tech spaces. Talking about universities, we want them to invest more in research and development, to also create opportunities for retaining these young people after they graduate, transition to now competitive job market. So this message, we are going to be now more robust, more intentional, more deliberate. We'll not wait for them to what we want, but we'll be able to predict what they want. So we need to invest in research and work with them.
And we shall be here to have this more of these conversations going forward.
You also work.
Very good. Madam PS, thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us here on Inside Government, of course, for being on this show.
Thank you.
Your time is high. Very good. Our conversation this afternoon revolved around how to boost the SMEs industry in this country, and of course are trying to analyze the challenges that they are facing. And we have been talking to Secretary in the State Department for SMEs Development, Susan Mangeni. You have been watching Inside Government. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you for your time. We do this again on Friday next week. Bye for now.
Kikohozi cha muda wo wana jasho kwa wingi usiku, uchungu kwenye kifua, afya kudhoofika, tafuta matibabu.
Imagine being born in a family of parents who have no education, no formal job. The animals they had have been taken away due to insecurity, so they are just left vulnerable. So by the time I was finishing Form 4, college life, I had to struggle to pay for my fees. Because already the story, I'll tell you the story of my parents.
Reimagine the possible and change the way that we think about healthcare technology.